it started off like, I can do 105. This isn't that bad. Like, I'm like, I'm good. And then it got to 115. I'm like, everybody inside, everybody inside. Yeah, man, it's. What can we do indoors? But the pool, you can find a pool, you can do the pool. I'll take that over a cold winter. I'll say that. So, yeah.
Well, you don't have a pool?
Huh?
You don't have a pool?
I do have a pool. I just want to just put it off like that. Maybe to, oh, you got a pool.
How do you think it's going so far in training camp?
It's going good. It's going good. I'm pleased with where we're at from a lot of different standpoints. I think, year one in a system, you're always very cognizant of how are we executing, and you got to be careful of how much you install. And maybe if you feel like, if I want to do this much, maybe it's 80% of that the first year. But right now our guys are executing things really well. Obviously there's mistakes. There's mistakes every day. There's going to be, because there's so many variables when you're going against an opponent, right? We can do a walkthrough and script it and say, hey, we're kind of hitting the checklist of our rules, but then you go against the offense and you can't prep for everything, right? And so there's going to be mistakes from a schematic standpoint. But as long as guys are conceptually understanding things, which they are, I feel good about that. And then just kind of, to go even further, the effort, the attention to trying to take the ball away is very high. So to me, that's what good defense is. Doesn't matter what you do. And I'm pleased with where the players are at with that.
What do you see from the defensive line early on? I know you put pads on yesterday, but it's kind of an unknown group relative to the NFL. What are you seeing from those guys? Who's standing out?
Yeah, yesterday was eye-opening for me putting the pads on, because I thought they did a great job in the run game, and it's a chance to work some power rushes a little bit more, and I thought they were collapsing the pocket well. It is a good group from top to bottom, and there's really good competition in there right now. Looking to see who's going to take the next step, not just in the run game, but as rushers, which is what we're going to, get to see here as we get going with some pads and get into some scrimmage later in the week. But overall, I think the competition in that room is great. I'm happy with where they're at.
Is there a position that you're so curious to see how it plays out during camp?
Yeah, I think there's a handful of positions. Every position, we're only, week in, week and a half in. And, some positions you maybe feel like there's solidified starters more than others, but whether it's, who's the 1 spot, 2 spot, who's the 3 spot, those competition, those hot spots of the roster exists throughout. And you got to let camp and preseason take care of itself, and guys are going to earn those roles and step into those roles.
What's the challenge for what you have at corner? You have a lot of youth. Even Marco, who's played a couple of years, is pretty young. What's the challenge in terms of bringing those guys to where you need them?
Yeah, I don't know if I look at it as a challenge as much as an opportunity to get some young guys with really good talent to play at a high level. I've talked to Marco specifically and told him, like, you have all the ability to be a number one corner in this league, and that's what I expect. But, I'm going to hold you accountable and try to get you better every day. Coach Smitty's going to do the same thing. JG's going to do the same thing. JG's background is coaching those DBs, and he's responded great to it. A lot of those guys, like you said, it's a young group with talent, with a high ceiling, and I like the way they show up and work in meetings. There's a lot of detail to that position, to that technique. Those guys are technicians out there, and they kind of you have to be obsessed with that spot and your craft. And I'm pleased with, where those guys can go. We got to keep working. We got to improve still, but I'm excited about it.
Sorry to maybe deciding unofficially on 1 and 2. I'm assuming Marco's going to be the 1, but how close are you deciding on who's going to be the 2?
Not close. It's good competition right now. We got a lot of camp to go, and I got to see who's going to merge to play certain roles in the secondary, specifically at corner, throughout the whole defense.
How did you follow the Buda Baker situation this offseason, and how's it been getting to coach him up? I didn't, obviously, that's the business side with the whole situation with Buda, but,
me and Buddha we're still developing a relationship. I was whatever he needed from me throughout that time. I made sure that he knew that. And it's been great now to get him, in the building and be able to work with him on so many different levels, right? He's an excellent player. Obviously, he's making us better being out on the field. He's a leader in the meeting room. He demands from his coaches. He demands from me. He demands from PT. He works extra. He's constantly there. Right now in the hotel, my office is in the safety room. And it's almost like his office is in the safety room too. So, it's kind of what I expected from outside perspective. It's real. Like, he's a leader. He's a warrior. He's a good football player.
Only one pad of practice, but initial thoughts on Zaven outside with pads on?
Yeah, Zaven is a big, violent man. Does that answer the question? Yeah, no, he's doing great. I think we all, how are you going to use Zaven? That's the question, right? Everyone wants to know, and the answer is multiple ways, right? He's uniquely athletic for how big he is, and so his role can expand onto the edge. He can stack. He can rush inside. He can do a lot of different things, and it's a violent game in the box, whether you're on the edge, whether you're inside, and he displays that violence.
Box he needs to check in his progression?
Zaven? What's the next box he needs to check? There's a lot of things that every player needs to develop. There's multiple areas of his game. I think as a edge rusher, he's got room for growth. I think as an inside rusher, he's got room for growth. In coverage, he can always get better. These guys are at such a high level. There's not usually one thing where it's like, hey, you need to just improve this. You want to inch forward with every technique that you need to use to execute the scheme. So Zaven, every player on the team, there's never necessarily one box that's going to check and you're going to break free. Come on. Oh! Nah, just kidding.
Given how far back B.J. Ojolari has not been on the field, what can you realistically expect for him when he first comes back? Are you going to have to slow play him a little bit, given that he hasn't been on the field that much?
Well, as far as slow playing, that to me is a little bit more of a medical question. So I don't have the answer to that, but there really is no expectation. I think once he's able to get back on the field, we can start working him in the mix, start repping him, and gauge where he's at. And from a schematic execution standpoint to a technique standpoint, in the run game, pass rushing, dropping into coverage, there's a lot of things that we need to assess once he gets out there before we kind of realize, hey, maybe this is the role that he can play, when he first gets back, and then progress into this role. So. No expectation per se, something that we're going to have to adapt and kind of feel as we go along.
The biggest changes that you're having to make as going from a position coach to defensive coordinator for the first time?
Yeah, good question. I think I see myself as someone who serves my coaches a little bit more than when you're a position coach. You really serve your players. Now, I feel like ultimately I serve the players. That's the reason I do it, but my job is to make sure that the coaches are getting everything they need to serve the players, because I can't coach every position to the level of detail that those guys can, right? And when you break up and you meet extra and you do individual on the field, there's no way you could do it all on your own. And so I look at my job as setting very clear expectations, roles, process for how we do things so that my coaches can function at a very efficient and effective level to best serve the player. So I think that's one thing that I've kind of made sure that I've done is been a good delegator, been very clear as a leader, and really do whatever my position coaches need to serve the players. Now, obviously, there's times where I coach the players up and I'll say something and I'll interrupt PT's meeting and he'll go like this. He'll be like, I'll be like, sorry, keep going, because I can't help myself. But Yeah, that's true story.
Challenge for young coaches at the top of the coaching ladder to gain credibility, to gain trust. How do you guys do that with you and Jonathan and Drew being so abnormally young for your positions?
I think that question maybe could be viewed a couple of different ways. I think when you're talking about within the building, which is really ultimately where our focus is, there's no one that's out of alignment. And I don't think age or experience necessarily plays a role. I think we're all very much, I think Jonathan's done a great job, and me and Drew have tried to make sure that we're in alignment with his vision and his expectations, and then from there, the staff, and then it goes to our leaders and the rest of the players. We're very much in alignment to what's best, what's my role, what is it best for me to do to make this team a team that can go out there and compete and win games. So from an internal perspective, I think we have great people in the building, and it's really allowed us not to worry about stuff like that and just focus on football and our roles within this team. I think you also maybe meant that question from an outside perspective, right, around the league, and that's not necessarily something that you can control or that you necessarily helps you to focus on. Obviously, I think every coach would love to say, hey, man, hear another coach say, I really respect what you do. But you got to go out there and earn that respect, not just if you're in a new role, but if you're in the same role. It's every week, every season. This game's forever adapting. It's a new team every year, right? The rosters change, and you got to go out and compete every single day.
Are you spending more hours in this role now? Are you a workaholic now because of this?
No, to be honest. I think I'm working about the same. To me, I put as much in as I can. That's an effective dose, right? I've never really been the type to wake up with my head at my desk, say, "Oh gosh, I sleep here last night." I think I'm better off when I go to bed and then can wake up and keep going again. So I can't say that my hours have changed. I tell you what did change is my child went from 3 months old last summer to 15 months old this summer, and that was a completely different experience for me. So working from home meant a little something different this past summer. I had to say, "Get away from me, kid," and trying to watch some film here.
How do you determine, or did it take you a while to determine what you watch at practice during individual as a coordinator, or what individual position meeting you might sit in on?
Yeah.
Like, is that still a process going on?
Yeah. No, yeah, that's something that every day I try to move around. Sometimes I might want to go to a certain position that I feel has the most on their plate with an install. Maybe I go to a position room that didn't have as great of a practice as the others, and I want to make sure that they're on point with what they need to do to get better. Sometimes I'll go into a room and to make sure that I praise them for, hey, guys, I really appreciate you, the way you practice today. And from an individual standpoint, I think early on, back in OTAs, I did sometimes stand from afar and so that I could see everything that's going on. Again, making sure that I serve the coaches the best so that I can say, hey, I didn't necessarily love this, what you did here. Here's why. I don't know if it boom, boom, boom. But now, those guys have full autonomy, my position coaches, and they do a great job. They're detailed. Everything we do in individual is with the intent of this shows up in the game, not just doing things to do them because they've been done in the past. And I'll try to pick a couple, 2 to 3 groups per day and actually try to go get my hands dirty a little bit more during training camp than maybe standing from afar, and just honestly play off of the position coach and see, where I can help in. Maybe there's a drill with multiple techniques happening, and if he's coaching this technique over here, I'll grab this guy and help out there. So that's a great question. I've kind of adapted since OTAs and kind of dove in a little bit more during training camp, I would say.
How tantalizing is it to work with Owen Papel?
Yeah, I love Owen. I like working with Owen, and honestly, the whole group of linebackers is a phenomenal group. You can almost kind of, when I describe Owen here, I feel like I'm describing all of them. But I think, for one, you talked about like athleticism, right? He can run. He's heavy-handed. He'll play physical in the box, but those guys, their preparation is professional, from the rookies to the vets. They're team guys. They want to win. They want to improve their game every day. They're working extra. They're doing everything they can to go make an impact on the field. So really impressed with the way that entire room and Owen specifically are working.
You said that Isaiah Simmons is elevating his game to a certain extent. What have you seen from Isaiah in his position change?
Yeah, Isaiah has showed up and worked, and he has gotten better every single day, and I'm very pleased. You can see the athletic tools, from just getting comfortable from OTAs till now. The athletic tools are just taking over, and he can cover range. I'm excited when we really get scrimmaging. The pads just got on yesterday, but he can take the ball away. I know those plays are coming, so I'm pleased with his progress. He knows what he has to work on. He's going to keep striving every day to improve those things. And yeah, like you said, I think everybody, not just Isaiah, but everyone in the defense, secondary, starting to get more comfortable with the scheme, let it loose, go play.
What have you seen so far from Dante Stills?
Yeah, he's got some tools to work with, no doubt. Explosive, really in college, played a little bit more outside. We've had him tucked in on a higher percentage basis, and he's done a great job. He can anchor doubles. He can play gap and a half. He's got some acceleration, good get off where he can add some juice in the pass rush as well. Still has, again, you talk about checking boxes, right? Every aspect of his game he can keep elevating, but I'm very pleased with the tools, the guy in the meeting. Great football character, excited where he's headed.
With 5+ weeks or so to the first game, how much of your focus right now in camp is on the overall development of a youthful roster versus finding the best 11 or your starting lineup at this point in camp?
Yeah, I would say it's focused on the development of every player. You don't need to start trying to narrow things down right now with so much time to go. Training camp, preseason, the evaluation process, that will come with time. That's my job, and the coach's job is to improve the player. And so that's absolutely from the bottom to the top. Every guy, we got to try to maximize his abilities. So that's 100% the focus.
Can I see you and Andre sort of extensions of you and JG, just because, the history you have with those guys, you try to make them like that? Yeah,
I think there's familiarity, but you don't ask them to be anything that they're not. They in Philly, they could be themselves, and that here they can be themselves as well. I think they understand the expectations, and they can help set those examples. But honestly, the roster is great, so it doesn't take long when you have great leaders that are bought in and they're living it for the whole ship to start to move in that direction. So I love that we have those two there. Obviously, when you first show up, having those familiar faces is comforting. But they're all familiar faces now, and I think everybody understands where we're trying to take this thing, and I feel good with everybody's on board, and I'm glad those two are here as well.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you guys.